podcast Amsterdam.
Well, hello Amsterdam. This is the Amsterdam Film Show, and this is me, Cathy, and I think we have on the line Bill Scurry.
You're correct. I am on the line.
Hello. Cool. Now, I must firstly apologise because we've hijacked the Amsterdam kitchen spot on our radio station for those people listening live. They might have been expecting all sorts of local food stories, which we normally do on a Saturday morning. But that's not going to come back on the station until the 30th of January. So we're giving you an extra treat. Bill, what have we got on store? You're just so active on the Letterboxd platform, which we're going to talk about for our listeners in a minute if you haven't heard of it. And then I just thought you were the ideal Amsterdammer to bring onto the show when everyone's sat at home needing some entertainment.
I like to think of myself as the ideal Amsterdammer anyway, in a number of virtues. But yeah, I watch a lot of movies, and I'm glad you asked me for recommendations and whatnot, because I'm brimming with opinions. I have a lot to offer the world.
Great, that's good. Because I've hardly seen anything, and the things I have seen are very guilty secrets. But maybe we'll have time for that at the end of the show. So normally the Amsterdam Film Show will share new cinema releases in the Netherlands and review those, talk about special film events in the city because there's so many nice independent cinemas with great programs and stuff. But of course we can't do that right now. But people are still watching movies, aren't they?
Yeah, I would say that they're probably gobbling up streaming and movies at rates unprecedented, and also we're right on the cusp of major theatrical releases coming out day and date, streamed right to you via apps and other VOD services. So, depending, you can think of that as an apocalypse, or you can think of that as a boon. And look, as a guy who eats a lot of movies on a daily basis, I want more of this. I don't want to have to scratch and bite and find movies in illicit ways. I'd rather you give me a very easy way to pay for them and watch first-run films.
Yeah, the industry is going to change in that way. It's true, the way they're released and consumed, for sure. We might even bring you some insights from the Dutch film industry, because they've released some press releases, some review of last year and what they're going to do in the year ahead, the issues there, which might surprise you, some of those things, like what was the most popular film in the Dutch cinemas last year whilst they were open, which surprised me actually, because the year before that was the Lion King remake, but it's a very different film this year, which I shall reveal later for you. And yeah, it's a big deal there with the cinemas. I was talking to someone last night, a couple, and they were really liking not having to go to the cinema and sit with like loud teenagers or other people, and they like the comfort of their own home. Yes.
Yeah, I'm a devotee and aficionado of sitting in the dark room, mostly because that's where the movies have been. And my experience coming from, before I moved to Amsterdam, I'm a New Yorker going back 20 years. And so we had some of the finest small repertory theaters in the world. A number of them, in fact, all in one place, places like Film Forum, the Quad Cinemas, IFC, so on and so forth. Angelica, just legendary names along the way. And I like going there because there was always a guarantee of something great playing. And like I said, to be honest, if you give me the option to, watch this on my gigantic Macintosh screen from the comfort of my office here in Jordan, it could be a golden age. I don't see a detriment from not going to the theater just because it could be a potentially distracting experience.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Well, there's certainly lots of. I hope that the local independent cinemas in Amsterdam, of which have many, will kind of keep going through this crisis, and that there'll be some left by the time we're allowed to go to the local cinemas. For those moments where we do want to go out, we'll see. But no, there's plenty. It's plenty. We can do it from the comfort of our own home. One thing people were looking forward to with the big screen experience was the Wonder Woman 84. We had a team that were going to go to the press screening and review it for our listeners. We were promising them that. And then, of course, it was just, I think, the day before or the day of the press screening, they had two press screenings, the cinemas were closed. So it was just within grasp. And, of course, the film has been released online as well in the US. So there's plenty of reviews out there now of Wonder Woman 84. But we have yet to have it on the big screen. And maybe if the cinemas open at the end of January, it might come out. But I think the cinemas will be closed a bit longer. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think Rutte and De Jong are indicating that the lockdown is going to go a little further than we think. I mean, everyone can have wishful thinking, but I think that for the sake of the health of the Netherlands and also, it's metropolitan areas here in the Randstad, I
Yes.
think that they should stay closed for a little while longer. And I'm sorry about the pain that will cause on people, both, recreationally and economically.
Yeah, yeah. So what we have for you then, the reviews, if people are looking for something to consume, the films that we've got are, a couple of these I had not heard of. So you have Small Axe, which is a film series from none other than Steve McQueen, who is an Amsterdammer.
Is he really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's he's married, I think, to a Dutch lady, also a filmmaker or something. And I bumped into him in a cafe in De Pipe once. So there you are, Steve McQueen, resident here. But it's very much of a UK-focused film series called Small Axe. And then, of course, Sound of Metal. That's definitely on my list of things to see with Riz Ahmed. You're going to tell us about that. And then the two others I hadn't heard of, Vast of Night and Ober.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Vast Night is a release that's relatively new. Ober, I'm digging around in the crate a little bit, but I wanted to bring something that was Dutch. With one of my finds. I'm not discovering him, but somebody I discovered as a filmmaker last year, and it's definitely worth talking about.
Brilliant. Okay, so don't go anywhere, Amsterdam. We've got we're here for an hour with you. I'm going to play you a song now. And what do you think you'll start with out of all those four films, Bill?
I want to talk about Vast of Night first.
Okay, cool.
Podcast Amsterdam.
Yeah, you're back with us on the Amsterdam Film Show. Me, Cathy, and Bill Scurry, who's going to talk about a few film flicks for you, Amsterdam and The Vast of Night. What is it?
Vast of Night is a loving homage to Rod Serling and the Twilight Zone and that sort of spooky mystery mid-century American type storytelling. In fact, it is very much it's built as if you're watching some TV show very much like the Twilight Zone. Mm-hmm. Now, I always wonder how, do people like these things? Do they know something like the Twilight Zone? I know that the people I talk to and the little echo chamber I'm in are all like freaks for this kind of thing. Yeah. So I just assume people will be interested in this. But this is a movie that is very, it's a low budget film. It was directed by a first time director named Andrew Patterson. He wrote and directed it. And it's set in like a town somewhere, I think in New Mexico. And it has all these spooky elements of like alien transmissions. And it's set in the 1950s, which also roots it in that particular time period. Very few actors, and it's almost like storytelling. A lot of these scenes are as the camera slowly pushes into people's faces as they're telling you these incredibly, oral tradition-y type War of the Worlds stories. And it's just a very effective sci-fi drama that does a lot of telling and not showing. But when it does show, it kind of knocks your socks off.
Ooh, brilliant. What is it for any age group? Would you say a little bit spooky?
There's nothing violent about it. There's nothing, like I'd say tonally, it could be a little creepy, but this is exactly the kind of movie that, like a sick, deranged person like me would have been into from the age of like 10 up for sure. But maybe that's a little older for normal, more adjusted people who had good childhoods.
Little creepy. So then what's the drama there then? What's going on?
The drama is, you're watching these two actors almost like figure out, they hear something strange, which pushes itself onto both the telephone switchboard. And again, it's one of those big switchboards with the plugs that you see in TV and movies. And the DJ who's just in this booth with the gigantic antenna over his building. And they both hear the same signal and they try to figure out what it is. The drama is that a caller calls into the guy's station and starts telling him, I heard this sound once before. I was part of like a Black Book Air Force project where we found something in the desert. And this is the last time I heard it. Everything went to hell. And, you just get these little bits and pieces of, oh, my God, you're hearing something. It's starting up again. Whatever this mysterious, unknown, transmission is, something bad is going to happen in this town. And the only two people who know about it are the switchboard operator and the DJ.
Oh, that's spooky. That's nice, though. Yeah, I like it. Don't scare me too much if I'm doing a late night show. I sometimes do that on Sunday night. I like the sound of it. It's very retro. And then I like, with the old, you're right, with the old school radio equipment.
It's retro. I mean, the guy, like I said, I keep I keep incarnating Rod Serling. Again, if you understand the visual vocabulary, the sort of tonal vocabulary of the Twilight Zone, this was made very lovingly and professionally, and I would say competently and ably. It's not just a ripoff that uses those ciphers and glyphs to tell the story. The guy really understands what made those mid-century black and white anthology TV shows so effectively creepy, and he employs all those techniques here to great use. And again, I never saw this guy coming. I've never heard of Andrew Patterson before, but he kind of knocked a bunch of our socks off this year.
So how did you discover Vast of Night then?
It was kind of in the the podcast, YouTube review, movie nerd annals. This stuff was blasted on Twitter. There's a whole demimonde on Twitter we call movie Twitter, and it's a lot of these same nerds, English language nerds for the most part, across Europe and North America, and then we all amplify something amongst each other. And this is one of those movies that picked up steam because we have a lot of the same. People appreciate films. You can watch a bunch of different genres, and this is something I think that crosses over a lot of boxes for us.
Great. And if people want to watch that, I think you're saying Amazon Prime is where to go. Yes,
Amazon Prime. And the one thing I'll caveat this is by saying, look, I'm sure a lot of people here in the Netherlands know if you're watching entertainment, you might already have the ubiquitous VPN, because I think that a lot of people have found a use for it, and I certainly need one. And so Prime doesn't have this, and Prime.nl. You got to have a VPN pointed back at the States or something like that. And so that's kind of a caveat for all these choices. For some reason, even the Dutch movie is not available on Prime streaming here in the Netherlands. You have to go to prime.com in the States. Yes. So that's, your mileage may vary a little bit.
Yeah, one day they'll figure all of that out with the release dates in the different regions, because it is a pain in the arse, and everyone's getting over it anyway when they want to do it.
Precisely. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Brilliant. That's good to know how to get a hold of that. Let's see. And also, while we're here, let's talk a little bit about the Letterboxd platform, because a lot of the films that we're going to talk about today, you obviously are reviewing for us as well on the station. But if you want to go online, there's a vast number of other reviews that you've released for everybody on the Letterboxd platform.
Yeah, Letterboxd is, I would say it's like social media software, but the specificity of it is that it's a fusion of Internet Movie Database, IMDb, and a Twitter or Facebook kind of thing. So it is a relational database of all these films that come out. With the information therein about each movie, but the important part is that it's a connection tool for people to share reviews, to write them, and you compile a list and ratings of your own. It's really a very good organizational tool for you to log and account for and statistically keep a pretty good record of what you see and who directed it and how many actors are bits and pieces of it. So, for instance, you can go find Ingmar Bergman's movies, and they're all in like a hopper. They're in a list, yes. And so you can click off. It's almost like the Ingmar Bergman challenge of how many movies can you bump off. But again, it's a really good social networking tool. That's the specific part is that it's based on film and film reviewing.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's really good. I've got to dig deeper into it because I'm only following 2 reviewers on the Letterboxd platform, but it's great. That's following you, Bill Scurry, and
appreciate that.
Yeah, and Dan Hassler-Forrest, who's also in the Netherlands. I think he's a film and television lecturer in the Utrecht or somewhere nearby. So there you are. But I'm going to start following more, and I should actually do some more reviews myself as well, and encourage our listeners too.
Mm-hmm. At least log. I mean, I think that if you don't, reviews are one thing, but logging your films just to keep a record of them, I think winds up being very useful at the end of the year for me.
Yes, and the lists. I'm liking the list. So,
Broadcast Amsterdam.
Yeah, so that was the Fugees killing me softly with his song, Lauryn Hill. So we're back on the Amsterdam Film Show. Bill has picked out The Sound of Metal.
Cathy, by the way, I'm so old. I remember when that was a Roberta Flack song. But
oh, yes. Oh, my God, really? Or maybe I did too. I don't know. I've just forgotten. Who knows?
Anyway, yes, back to the topic. I did pick The Sound of Metal, which was an American independent film release. Pretty big deal, came out last year, towards the end of last year, 2020. This was directed by a guy named Darius Marder. Marder, who's a first-time director himself, but he's worked on a couple of projects before. But if you have seen, and maybe you have, maybe you haven't, a movie called Blue Valentine, who was made by a director named Derek Cianfrance, which is about 6, 7, 8 years old by now. Really raw, gritty, authentic indie film with Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
And Michelle, what's her face? I can't remember. And it's about a breakup, and it's a really, really honestly frank, like actor's exercise breakup, and it feels great. This has that same DNA to it. There's something about what this guy Darius Martyr deputized Riz Ahmed to do, and Riz Ahmed is a fantastic actor. Every single time this guy takes her, he just gobbles it up, becomes a different type of actor. I mean, I've loved him since Four Lions, which I think was 2010, this sort of English terrorism comedy, very strange movie, but it's incredible, and he's been great ever since. And so,
Rubber Dinghy Rapids.
Yeah,
it's a line in that. Rubber Dinghy Rapids.
Rubber Dinghy Rapids. But he in this movie he plays a hardcore band drummer. He gigs around the country, back in America, I should say. He gigs around with his girlfriend Olivia Cook, and they pretty much travel on an airstream from gig to gig. It's a very hard scrabble way, but you can tell he's got no other life but the drums. And he loses his hearing. Who the hell knows what from? Could be from damage. It could be neurological. And he has to cope with what it's like. With his whole life was music. His whole life was hearing and sound. And he has to redefine his identity and sort of come to grips with what life would be like without hearing.
Wow. I do love Riz Ahmed. There's something about his voice, but he's got a very sweet, sensitive face as well. He's seen the Star Wars movies, the most recent ones and stuff. So he's a good actor in this. I thought I'd play, this is one I picked out. I thought I'd play a bit of the trailer for people to get a taste of it. Here we go. If I can.
You sound great.
Yeah, right.
What, you telling me you weren't feeling it? You were in it. We don't need to put them all out.
I know, but we just need to film them.
Your hearing is deteriorating rapidly.
We'll come back. Till then, Lou, we just keep going, okay?
No.
Lou,
No.
let's play tomorrow. Let's see what it's like, okay? I'm gonna be like a click track. You can play to me.
You have to understand, your first responsibility is to preserve the hearing you have.
I can't hear you. Do you understand me? I can't.
Ooh, it's would you say there's a bit of a love story in that as well? Whoops, no, I've got to put you back in. Sorry, here we go. There you are.
Yeah, I would say there's a love story. I mean, it is not just a love story, but it's also, the two of these people, I mean, it's revealed that they both save each other's lives because before the movie starts, they hint to a lot of addiction issues and suicide tries and things like that. So these actors do what actors are supposed to do, which is incorporate this stuff and kind of throw it away. You throw the facts of it away and you just act inside the reality of it. And so, the romances between these two people, and most of the movie is about him trying to get back to her and figuring out, well, what's the future of this band and my career and the gigging and the drums if I can't hear anymore and I've got to learn sign language and whatnot. But it ends in a really satisfactory place in regard to that romance.
Yeah. I follow Riz Ahmed on Twitter, and he says a lot about how the experience of making the film was amazing, and he learned a lot from the other deaf actors and children that he worked with, I think, as well. And a big moment in his life as well, I think.
Yeah, again, it's not like he suffered from any lack of renown. I mean, even amongst American audiences, because he was on an HBO series a couple years back called The Night Of. And I mean, I'm sure that must have been when a lot of people got to introduce him. That was his handshake deal with him. And he's been fantastic since then. But I think that this is a career turn where he becomes almost like that. Like this is his Freddie Mercury movie, where he graduates into a different level of fame. And I can imagine he's going to get an Oscar nomination for sure, if not more than that. But yeah, he definitely transforms into a different actor from this point beyond.
Yeah. And I don't know if you got from the trailer, listeners, because there's bits of the film, so they've done it so that if you are hearing impaired or deaf, then you can still follow the story, and there's subtitling and everything for people. So it's kind of different the way they've done that.
Yeah, in fact, all of the collateral, the press collateral that they've done, the interviews, as you would expect, the interviews themselves are subtitled because they expect hearing impaired people to want to see the story, to want to hear more about it, and so they're done with sign language interpreters. And I'm telling you, if you see this movie, there's a supporting performance by this Chicago actor in America, this guy named Paul Rassi, who's a rock and roll dude, and he's also he's not hearing impaired, but he was raised by two hearing impaired parents in Chicago. He's a little older, and he's having a sort of moment based on this too. And he's been in the advocacy business for a long time, and I think that again, watching somebody who's been around for a while, who's slugging it out in the trenches and is getting a moment. And seeing him do interviews in ASL is again, this is different. You haven't really seen a whole lot of this before. It's a beautiful moment.
Yeah, I mean, and what we've seen with things like, I mean, just press conferences here with coronavirus, and now you're seeing the sign language very much a high profile part. It's good to know and to have that, in kind of mainstream things. What was I going to say? With this film, Riz Ahmed. I know? I was going to ask you, Bill, what you think of his accent.
Oh, see, that's a good hint. That's a perfect segue from a radio professional. Well, I have a finely tuned bullshit detector when it comes. Look, I love English actors. I revere them. But one thing I don't like is the fact that so many substandard American accents have been portrayed by excellent British actors. In a way, I think that the streaming revolution has required more actors to be like grouted and filled into Netflix, and so there's a lot of really, really poor English letter R's that are mangled by English actors. But I'll tell you, Riz Ahmed, he is fantastic. He absolutely nails our accent to the point where it doesn't cause me to stop over it and hitch on it, which a lot of British actors do. And it's unfortunate that I can't enjoy a lot of performances because I get stuck on the fact that they sound like they're overthinking. Even Kate Winslet, like actors like that, where they overthink how they're supposed to say the words, so it takes them out of the performance. But he doesn't suffer from that at all.
Yes, yeah. Like Hugh Laurie has been immensely successful in the US, but I really think his American accent is very false. But
yeah, I think so too.
But Riz Ahmed, good on you. Did you know he was a musician?
Yeah, I knew he was a rapper at least. I never heard any of his tracks before. You played the one before, but yeah, it's interesting. I guess everyone wears a lot of different hats, and especially coming up in the British Pakistani neighborhood, there's no way I guess music wasn't going to be a part of his life.
No.
Broadcast Amsterdam.
Oh, that was Riz Ahmed and Once Kings. Did you like that, Bill?
Yeah, it's tight, man. He's got good flow, that guy.
Yeah. So you're back on the Amsterdam Film Show, and the last film you've picked out for us, a Dutch one.
Yeah, I had to. I couldn't come on this show. Look, I owe this country, my new home country now, quite a bit. And you can tell from my voice that I'm a native-born Dutchman, grown up here in 1975. Not at all, not really. But one of the beautiful things about coming here is just when I think that the Anglo market kind of like vacuums up all the talent, especially if someone gets to a certain level in a country, they want to graduate to Hollywood or, Britain or something like that. To come here and see that there's a filmmaker who is resolutely Dutch and working in this market and has no aspirations, at least as I know, that, he did want to go and direct a James Bond movie or something like that. And this is a director named Alex I'll say it like a Dutch person, Alex van Warmerdam. He has directed, I want to say, 8-9 movies now. The most recent is a film called Schneider versus Bax in 2017. But I'm talking about a movie from 2006 called Ober. And it is absurdist. It is darkly comic. It is vaguely threatening. It has a lot of reality, but also surrealist techniques. I think, though, that there's a sense of humor to everything this guy does. And he often he's a short, gray-haired man with a very nonplussed look on his face. He kind of looks like a really, a cab driver with a shitty attitude. And yet he's an incredible filmmaker. He's a visual artist. He's a painter. He's a sculptor. And he's made these films, gets a couple of $1 million, and does his own vision each time. And so Ober is about a waiter who is completely just – everyone around him just unloads on him all day. They treat him terribly, verbal abuse, physical abuse, just this like Job-like figure being cast out until you realize that, this isn't a spoiler, but he's actually a character in a story. And what he does is that he actually enters the room in which the writer is typing these things out and complains about the treatment he's undergoing. But I mean, what he goes like the scenes where he's enduring this horrible night in his restaurant are so real. They're so well acted by. And Van Veerdam has this coterie, this stock company of actors he brings from movie to movie. So you can tell there's a real comfort that they all know each other, that they've been directed since the late '80s, and they're going to get together every 5 years and make these movies. I think this stands out as among Van Veerdam's his oeuvre. As I think it's the first film I saw of his, and I think it's my favorite film.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. And of course, it's set in a restaurant because ober meaning in Dutch waiter, yes. Which I didn't know that. I've lived here for 10 years and it took my 5-year-old son to tell me that because he just came up saying, I'm the ober. And I'm like, what the fuck is an ober?
And what's a restaurant even now, right? What does that even mean? Yeah,
that's true. But it sounds a little bit like is it Stranger Than Fiction with Will Ferrell, where he's the subject of and he kind of, then he meets the writer who's making his life awful.
Yeah, that's actually that's an excellent comparison. Although I did not like Stranger Than Fiction, I thought it was had a lot of pretense to it. It ultimately fell apart. That was directed by a guy named Mark Forster, a Swiss director who's been working in America for a while. And that guy also made Monsters Ball with Halle Berry, and that was a weird choice for him. This is a much more natural fit. I think that if you're going to tell that type of story with that surrealist touch, Ober from Van Veerdam is the kind of movie you want to more competently do such a thing.
Yeah, brilliant. From the Dutch filmmaker. This is from 2006, you say?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
But it's still available on Amazon Prime. That sounds brilliant. I like to... We must consume, living here, I think, Dutch culture. I did watch a Dutch film this year, I must admit, Bill, but it was not quite as good. It was a real... lowbrow, stupid one, but it's the playful thing. It's had Frank Lammers from the Undercover TV series, and it was just him playing a Dutch teacher in lockdown. So it was a film about the coronavirus lockdown.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and it's just a bit of fun. But that was my Dutch film consummation this year.
Well, I went through a bunch. I mean, I binged this guy Van Veerdam's movies, and also the legend who I did not know about, Dick Maas.
Oh, yeah.
Even though Dick Maas has been sending movies out to the States. I mean, in Dutch, he did direct an American movie in 2001 with Naomi Watts, but he's got The Lift and he's got Amsterdam and a movie called Primal, I think it is. And I've been gorging on his stuff, too. I mean, I've seen a couple of other Nederlandse filmmakers as well. I've seen classics like Karakter and Siskelraad. What I'm butchering these names. Oh, De Anslag. Very good films that, again, I'm catching up on the sort of canon of Dutch films. And that's, one of my 2020 projects was eating more Dutch movies with my eyeballs.
Oh, brilliant. And I guess those are also reviewed on your Letterboxd platform?
They are. But I mean, these movies have been out for a while. You certainly don't need my reviews because they're kind of like, a lot of them are Academy Award nominated, best foreign language films from the 90s and the 80s and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned Dick Maas. I remember the film Prooi, which means, I think, prey, and it's all about killer lions loose in Vondelpark.
That's the one I'm thinking of, yes. Yeah, and Vlodder, which is like Beverly Hillbillies set outside Den Haag. So, yeah.
Yes. Eat them up, listeners. They're a bit of fun. We need that. That's Ober as well, particularly the Dutch film that's available on Amazon Prime. I've got some news from the Dutch film industry. Actually, there's a good time to talk about that, actually, because it's interesting. With the lockdown in the Netherlands and across the world, normally, obviously... you've got all the new film releases, but there've been less this year. So the Dutch film industry have they've taken a bigger share of the film market than normal because those people who are consuming maybe in their homes or something, they're choosing Dutch films rather than, foreigner or Hollywood or other films, which is an interesting development. But then there's also still a difficult time. I've got some figures for you. The number of visits in the Dutch cinemas obviously decreased from 38 million to 16.8 million.
Zoinks.
Yeah, so that's 56% less. But the years before the coronavirus shutdown, it was actually having a good start. So 2020, it started off with a 9% rise in attendance compared to the the year before it. So it was all going so well. But there you are. So they've lost about 300 million euros, the Dutch film kind of cinema industry, with tickets and everything. And yeah, it's not looking great. I promised, I teased you at the beginning of the show, what was the film that was the most popular in Dutch cinemas whilst they were open? The year before was the Lion King remake. Have you got any guesses, Bill?
Jesus, I'm going to guess Trolls World Tour, Cathy.
No, it's actually 1917.
Oh, 1917. Okay,
the war
sure.
film, yeah. So that was very well attended, and I think that was towards the beginning of 2020.
It was January. It was right around the Christmas holiday. Yeah, it spilled over.
Yeah. So there you are. They're very confident, the Dutch film industry. They say they want to see signs of recovery in 2021. They've been investing in new cinemas. Can you believe it? With all of us streaming and watching from home. So there was, I think, 4 new cinemas. Haarlem's got a new cinema, if anyone's interested. Lots of people moving to Haarlem. They've got a new cinema opening, or has opened. So that's a little bit from the Dutch film industry. Before we finish the show, we've got about 5 minutes left of the show, so let's look ahead to 2021, the new releases that might get you to a cinema when they reopen. Is there anything that in your mind, Bill?
Yes, there is one movie in particular, and it doesn't need my help, but I will go on record by evangelizing the upcoming movie, the end of the year, Denis Villeneuve's remake of Dune, his adaptation of Frank Herbert's novel, which is a legendary text in sci-fi for me. I've read so few of these canonical sci-fi and fantasy books. I have not read The Hobbits. I have not read The Lords of the Ring. I've not read The Games of the Thrones and all of these things. But Dune is one of these. I've had Dune my entire life. I'm an enormous fan of the 1984 David Lynch movie. I think it's a misunderstood, genius masterwork classic. But I'm really looking forward to this. And I don't need to go to the theater for any of these things. Look, I watched Wonder Woman at home. I watched Soul at home. I don't need to go to the bioscope for these things. But Dune is really the one movie. Again, we were supposed to have had it in November, but they kicked it down the block for another year or so. So for me, I want Dune to perform well because it's the first of a prospective, 2-movie segment adapting Frank Herbert's original book. I want it to do well because I want them to greenlight the second film. And right now, the way it looks, there's probably any good chance that they'll just make this one, and even if it does well, they'll probably be too timid to put the second one into production. But I'm looking forward to that, and I mean, I will fly to whatever ultimate Thule Greenland if there's a cinema wherever I can watch this thing. I will go.
Brilliant. Coincidentally, you picked out the one film that I think might tempt me back to the cinemas, Dune. So there we go, Amsterdam. Let's hope, and I'm sure it will pack out the Amsterdam cinemas when we're open up again. But of course, everyone's watching stuff at home, and not just films. Of course, there's a TV series. So we must just nod to the series as well. The top 10 in the Netherlands on Netflix with the series is Bridgerton, which I must admit I watched the whole series in about just over a week, which is my guilty pleasure. It's like a period comedy drama romance, but it's very nice because about half the cast are black, and it's good. It's refreshing to see that, including the Queen. I think Queen Anne or Queen Charlotte, whichever.
Charlotte, yeah. I'm doing this is my podcast topic tomorrow on the one I do with my friend back in the States. So yes. I'm
going to listen to that. Bridgerton, my guilty secret. And then, of course, Cobra Kai was top 3, which I've consumed in a week. Cobra Kai, and which it's lovely, it's brilliant. That is a bit of fun for us to cheer you up, and there'll be plenty of people loving the TV. And I'm going to play you out with a song from the Cobra Kai, which is Foreigner. How do you like that, Bill?
Yeah, classic. I go way back with Foreigner. That's the real deal.
We're going to have to get you on the Amsterdam Film Show again because we can't keep up with all the films that you review. Are you happy to do that?
Oh, absolutely. Whenever you need me, I'm sitting here. Look, whether the microphone's running or not, I'm talking about movies. So usually it's nice if there's someone else listening.
Yay, brilliant. So look up Bill Scurry on Letterboxd. We'll put links on our post after the show. Do you want to give any of your handles?
Yes, I'm on Twitter at William Scurry. I do video essays about film topics called American Caesar Salad. It's on YouTube, youtube.com/amcaesar.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us, Bill.
Thank you so much, Cathy. I really like what you do here, and I appreciate you dealing me in today.
That's cool. And thank you for listening, everybody.
Broadcast Amsterdam, your local radio station, 24/7 and on demand. Or on broadcastamsterdam.nl.